Was there ever one particular movie that you had to wait your entire childhood to see? One movie that you knew you had to see, but your parents heeded the warning of the PG-13 rating? If you were not homeschooled, then the answer is probably no. That was only a joke, not a jab at homeschooling. Homeschooling is awesome. Mom, I still thank you for how you raised me. I assure you, you were not the mother in Ladybird. In all my life, the movie that I had anticipated the most and for the longest time was Jurassic Park. Beware, this review contains spoilers. Directed by Steven Spielberg and released in June of 1993, this movie was a phenomenon, a landmark film so astounding that it captured the imagination of the entire planet. And after its release, it emerged as the highest-grossing film of all time, and held that title for 4 years, until James Cameron's Titanic became king of the world. Since as far back as I can remember, I always had a tremendous fascination with dinosaurs. I was never able to explain why, until Jack Horner explained it for me in 3 simple words.
Big, different, and gone.
And my favorite movie as a kid was the other dinosaur movie that Steven Spielberg worked on with Universal Pictures, The Land Before Time. In fact, I can't remember which came first, my love for dinosaurs or my love for The Land Before Time. Either way, one definitely had an effect on the other. When I was 7 years old, I first came across a VHS copy of Jurassic Park at my local library, and as I was discovering it for the first time, the idea of real people witnessing real dinosaurs was irresistible to me. I pleaded to my mom to let me check it out, but she insisted that I wait until I was 13. So 6 years, I waited. And it was actually a little while after my 13th birthday that I suddenly remembered Jurassic Park, and as soon as I did, I got on the library's website and placed a hold on it. And while I was at it, I searched the trailer for the movie, eager to get an early glimpse of those dinosaurs. But as I watched the trailer, I was driven so mad by how little of the dinosaurs it showed, but it ultimately added to my anticipation for the surprise. What you see on screen right now is as much of the dinosaurs as the trailer features.
Jurassic Park.
They do not make trailers like that anymore. So when the copy of the movie arrived, there I was in the living room with my parents, finally popping in the movie after all those years, hoping it'd be worth the wait. And it did not disappoint one bit. Jurassic Park blew me away. From the get-go, I got amped up for what was to come by the incredibly spooky music playing over the opening titles. John Williams is one of the most versatile film composers, having worked for Spielberg 18 years earlier on the score for Jaws. And it shows just as much here, not just with the ominous or suspenseful music, but also with one of the most beautiful and iconic movie themes ever composed. So in Jurassic Park, a wealthy entrepreneur named John Hammond invites 2 paleontologists and a chaos theorist to inspect a theme park that he's built on a Central American island called Isla Nublar. They travel there to discover that Hammond's park features living, breathing dinosaurs cloned from DNA found inside fossilized mosquitoes. In spite of their concerns about the security and practicality of the place, they, along with Hammond's 2 grandchildren, are given a preview tour of the park's attractions before the place opens to the public. But during the visit, one of the employees, Dennis Nedry, steals embryos, carrying out a deal he made with Hammond's corporate rival. In the process, he shuts down the security system, allowing the dinosaurs to break free from their confinements. Now, because the dinosaurs were virtually hidden from the marketing, Spielberg was clearly very excited to wow audiences with those dinosaurs when they were there experiencing the full movie. And he had every reason to be excited because these were the most revolutionary effects of their time. 25 years later, they still hold up 100%. It's some kind of miracle. Spielberg spared no expense, having seamlessly woven majestic CGI with groundbreaking animatronic effects designed by the late Stan Winston, who previously worked on the practical effects for Terminator 2. The animatronics are incredibly detailed and their movements are lifelike. When the baby raptor hatches from its egg, the whole thing is in frame, making it imperceptible that it's really a puppet. Cinema being the medium that comes closest to making the impossible possible, to see dinosaurs portrayed on film and in such a realistic way, to this day the most realistic ever seen on screen, it enchanted my very soul. It's a magical moment when the group first witnessed the Brachiosaurus. The sequence is topped off with my single favorite shot in the movie, which comes right after John Hammond delivers one of the best title drops in cinema.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
And the shot in question is the distant view of the herds of Brachiosaurs and Parasaurolophus in the lake with the theme playing over it. Goosebumps every single time. Unfortunately, though, my favorite shot in the movie is followed shortly after by my least favorite shot in the movie. It's when the group first arrive at the visitor center, and as they're walking up the staircase, the camera puts dramatic emphasis on the mounted skeletons on display. Were those dinosaur skeletons really supposed to impress us when literally 1 minute earlier we saw the breathing skin kind? Nevertheless, there are so many other moments in this movie that are straight out of childhood daydreams. Running with a flock of Gallimimus, or falling asleep to the sound of nearby Brachiosaurs singing. I could swear that Steven Spielberg took a glance through my dream notebook, but I wasn't even alive yet. The film is also great at generating scares and tension. Halfway into the movie, when the power goes off, we get introduced to the true star of the show, the one thing that can keep James Mattis awake at night, the thing that no Spinosaurus can outdo, the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
She comes roaring in to deliver a downright frightening sequence when she attacks the tour vehicles. The part where she pushes her head through the top window and the kids are just a glass sheet depth away from her jaws, it freaked the heck out of me. Probably the scariest image I had ever seen on screen at 13. No rhyming intended. And of course, there's the ever-famous signal of the T-Rex's approach with the water rippling, which they came up with the night before the shoot. But what I love most about that bit is how the lawyer is in such unadulterated horror by what he knows is coming that he submits to wishful thinking. Maybe it's the power trying to come back on. Another sequence that is relentlessly intense is the two velociraptors stalking the kids in the kitchen. When I watched that sequence for the first time, I kid you not, true story, I had to pause the movie so I could go use the restroom. Yes, I nearly wet myself watching that scene. One of the fantastic details of this movie is how it acknowledges that seeing dinosaurs in the flesh would result in us making new discoveries about them. The best example of this is what they do with the Dilophosaurus, the dinosaur that kills Nedry. In the movie, the Dilophosaurus is portrayed as a venom-spitting dinosaur with a fan-like neck frill that springs out when it gets aggressive. I was so impressed with this idea upon my first viewing, because having been a dinosaur buff, it was common knowledge to me that it was determined that the Dilophosaurus's teeth were too weak to be used when attacking prey. So scientists wonder, did it slash at its prey, or was it perhaps a scavenger? It's amazing how this movie took that small piece of trivia into account and thought outside of the box with it. But on top of the impeccable thrills and special effects, Jurassic Park has a lot more going for it. It's also about the people in this tale. A lot of reviewers seem to find the storyline with Alan and Ellie likable, where she's trying to get him to want kids, which he does when he gets lost with John's grandchildren. That part's okay. I will say that Ariana Richards and Joseph Mazzello were quite exceptional for child actors at the time. And I have to add this, Tim was me. At that kid's age, once I started talking about dinosaurs, I could never stop. I would just rattle off fact after fact about dinos, and wouldn't even pause after someone closed a door on me. I got annoyed when seeing this movie my mom would remark, "Hey, he reminds me of someone we know." I can laugh about it now. But the best character in my opinion is John Hammond, played brilliantly by the late Richard Attenborough. The thing that makes his character work so well is that he's not just a stereotypical money-hungry businessman. He really wants to bring smiles to people by allowing them to experience his park, which is made most evident when he turns down the lawyer's suggestion to charge thousands of dollars per person. He's extremely enthusiastic about the place, sometimes maybe even a little too into it, like when he's telling his tourists to say hi to the screen, as if he was the star of a children's TV show.
Hello.
Say hello. Say hello.
Hello.
The most emotional scene is after the security system goes awry, when John is remembering Petticoat Lane, a motorized flea circus he built. He tells Ellie of how he became dissatisfied with showing people an illusion, and wanted to build something that was unimaginable, but at the same time genuine. During this scene, the camera slowly pans over dinosaur toys, souvenirs, and other merchandise ready for purchase when the park opens. It's made clear in this scene how much John has poured his heart and soul into the place. So in the end, when John comes to grips with how everything he's worked for was out of his hands and he has to leave it all behind, you really feel sorry for him. John Hammond is among my favorite characters in any movie. And this film contains intriguing philosophy-driven dialogue, such as Ian Malcolm's speech about how life, finds a way. And a few scenes later when the group have lunch, discussing their doubts regarding how functional or ethical Jurassic Park is. I still get chills listening to Alan Grant's monologue during this scene.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look. Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea what to expect?
Colin Trevorrow has said that quote is the cornerstone of the upcoming Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, so as of right now, I'm really intrigued by the direction being taken with the new movie. But I should focus on one of these movies at a time. Now, in a sci-fi film like this, some suspension of disbelief is required, but depending on what your scientific ideology is, the science of Jurassic Park never gets outright unbelievable. Because DNA can't survive fossilization for more than about 10,000 years, I can tell you that being a believer in an Earth that's around 6,000 years old makes this movie more plausible and therefore even better. And anyway, intact DNA found inside fossilized mosquitoes shouldn't be too unbelievable when we're finding soft tissue in dinosaur bones and fossils that are as well preserved as this Ankylosaurus. Now, if I had to make note of any other real flaws with Jurassic Park, the worst I could say is that there are a number of continuity errors that, once you notice them, are pretty hard to unsee. Like the robotic arm disappearing when the raptor hatches, Ellie jumping over the same log twice, or the one that everyone talks about, the flat ground at the T-Rex paddock fence turning into a cliff. Which, I want to take this opportunity to partially defend that. In one shot of Alan and Lex hanging from the cliff, we can see trees and other foliage in the corner of the screen level with the border fence. It's easily missed, but it indicates that there is another drop-off perpendicular to the one that Alan and Lex are hanging from, and that was likely where the T-Rex made its entrance. Although even with that knowledge, it's obvious watching that sequence closely that the explorer doesn't get pushed that far and wouldn't have wound up on the edge of that cliff. So yes, this is a continuity mistake, but not to the extent that it's often made out to be. Even though this movie isn't absolutely flawless, I really have no major quibbles with it. Jurassic Park is a fantastic representation of everything I love about cinema. It's a scary, intelligent, action-packed, and perfectly paced thriller with great characters and an unmistakable sense of wonder. And it's the kind of movie made for kids at heart such as myself, bringing dinosaurs to life in a way that I never pictured. This movie may be the closest thing to alive that dinosaurs will ever be again. And speaking as someone who would give anything to see a real dinosaur in the flesh, I try to be content with that. Jurassic Park is one of my all-time favorite movies. No matter how many times I see it, I just can't help but watch in awe. I reward it a 96%. That's a wrap. Stay tuned for my review of the sequel, The Lost World, and the following movies, leading up to my review of the upcoming Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like if you liked, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.